this third and final layout, I'm going to do a little bit of blocking ahead of time. So I brought kind of some elements over to save a little bit of time. And I go toggle my grid. So I'm going to do Command and quotation to get my grid, and I'm going to start to block this out. So I think the important part is finding out where to work in this pretty large block of copy. We don't need this have an idea, let's build it together, because we already have that. So I'm going to bring out my paragraph panel. And you notice how it has a wonderful left alignment. It looks great, but you have this ragged right alignment. And you also have these hyphens that are dividing very simple words like company, and we don't want that. Clients never like hyphens. So let's go ahead and highlight all of our text, and we're in our paragraph, and we're going to unclick hyphenate. So that's going to make it where they don't have any more hyphens, which is fantastic. When you have smaller columns, hyphens are really important. When you have a column that small, you almost have to do hyphens. But for something like this, you don't really need hyphens, and it really makes it look nicer. So now we get to mess around with alignment. So I'm going to highlight them all, and there's a couple of them you can do. You can do center alignment, right alignment. These are all pretty standard alignments, but the one that I love the most is justify with last line align left. What this does is it aligns everything flush on the left side, but also the right side. So it just looks like a wonderful block of copy. This is great when it comes to layout design, when you do editorial magazines where you have much larger blocks of copy. It looks really nice. So I just kind of did that alignment, and I took away the highlights, or the hyphens, pardon me. So I'm going to highlight everything, and right now this is Myriad Pro. We want to go ahead and adapt one of our font choices. I think that Azo Sans. I don't have a lot of choices with weight. So let's see what happens here. Let's see how that's a pretty large block of copy. Let's see if I can make this a little bit longer. I like how that looks, but there's just too much of a block of copy. So there's a couple things we can do. We could do our thicker, bolder font for the first line in the copy. Go ahead and make this smaller. And then I can highlight this part of the copy and make it the smaller railway font, which I believe was it this one? But I want to do it from scratch. So I'm going to go up here and do railway and do a regular weight, make it smaller, and then reduce what is called the spacing or the leading between the spacing between the lines. I'm just going to reduce that. I'm in the character panel. I'm going to leave some white spacing here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to highlight these three lines. I'm adjusting the leading to find the right spacing. Okay, and I want to make sure there's a line break here to divide that copy up. So let's go ahead and get our grid back on and see if I can't make this a little bit smaller. Let's do 14 and then reduce the leading a little more. And make sure we have our justify with last line align left for that one. But for this top one, let's do a left alignment. It's not letting me do that unless I divide it into two separate boxes. That's no problem. I'm going to copy and paste. And I'm going to separate these two elements, which is probably wise anyway because they're so different. So now I have a little bit more control over each box. And now I can keep that as a left alignment. And let's make sure the hyphenate is unclicked. And now I can take this box and make sure hyphenate is unclicked and click on our justify left. So let's bring this down and put a dividing line. Okay, and we're just doing some blocking out of our type. Okay, so we can make this probably a smaller size. So remember, we don't want to go under 8. So let's keep it at 12 points and close the gap a little bit. This is smaller body copy. We don't have to have as much spacing. Let's have our little dividing line here. Go flush with that paragraph. And there we go. Let's do a left alignment here. This is why we have them as separate elements. I think that just looks better. So let's start really utilizing the grid system here. Let me close the gap between that just a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of put this on the grid a little bit. So I'm just zooming in. I'm putting this line right here. If I have 2 spaces between here and the line, let's try 2 spaces between here and our other smaller body copy. And let's maybe bring this all the way to this line. So you notice the grid is helping me find out where I can make the thickness of that copy. So let's bring in our headline now. Let's keep with this nice left alignment here. And we can keep this going here so the headline kind of goes a little bit over to the right. And so this have an idea, build it together. Let's make it flush. Let's make it where the R ends right here at the line of the grid. And we can worry about this other contact information later. So let's toggle off the grid. Let's find a way to work in these photos. I want to work in 3 photos with this layout. So we're going to kind of make them all the same size. And we could do some cropping here. So here's what we can do with blocking. Let's get our rectangle tool and let's make 3 different boxes. Let's use our grid system. Let's make it 6 full grid system boxes. I'm just going to copy and paste. Copy and paste. And we're going to see how we can work in these 3 photos. We could do them even like this. And now that we have them all the same size, we could just go like this and make them a little bit more narrow. Let's make them 3 circles. And let's make them different sizes. So let's make them different colors so we know which circle is which. And this is where we're going to use the cropping tool again. So let's figure out people is most important for your people shot. So let's bring in the people shot to be the bigger circle. And we're going to click on this and also click on our circle. We're going to right click and make clipping mask. And now that it's cropped, we can take our direct selection tool, select on the photo, and we can shift that photo around the cropping. Or we can go back into the selection tool and hold down shift and be able to make it smaller and get the right cropping. We're going to do the same thing with the other photos. Go ahead and make it shorter. I'm going to select both, right click, clipping mask. And let's bring out the material a little more in that. So I'm just making this smaller. We could put a yellow border on them. So we can take the eyedropper tool, sample that yellow, switch it to a stroke, and let's bring our stroke panel out and make that a little thicker. Okay, do that. Let's bring our purple background and really start to put this together. Let's get our purple background, right click, send that to the back. Let's make this all white for now. And then make our redesigned yellow. And just make that yellow too. Let's get a swatch of yellow. Sample that yellow so we can always click back and use our eyedropper tool. Okay, we can also do the line yellow. So this is really coming together. I think the stroke is a little too thick, so we're going to select it all and reduce the stroke a tad. And let's do a nice drop shadow on these. We click all of them, go to drop shadow, preview. Let's make it a nice long shadow. So let's do a big blur. Let's put a little distance here. And let's do 33, see if that's not too strong. And let's make this a little bigger. Let's put that on top. And now we can make this all yellow, or even better, make that white and bring out that build as yellow to have that nice high contrast. And let's play with that nice left alignment here, and let's tuck that right here with enough space to make it a different thought. So I don't want this to read as one big block, so I'm putting a little distance here. Let's also left align our logo, and we could bring back our grid and align everything we want to. Let's have this continually stretch across here. So I like this overall layout. There's not any huge gaps. There's nice margin here between everywhere. We can do something kind of fun for the background, so it's not kind of a boring background. We could bring in our little texture. We can bring in one of our other photos. Bring in our little texture that we made. Right, that can also be in the bottom. We can do a blending mode and bring in another photo. I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm pretty happy with this layout. What I like to do when I have type here, make it 1 notch smaller. Let's make it 11 points. I like to bring out a word every once in a while. So our main focus, and what I'm going to do is this bold focus. It's going to do a bold, and that kind of helps break down this type a little bit. So our main focus is to help design, produce, and mass produce any product imaginable. So how about any product, let's highlight any. I'm just picking out a word that I think would help it read a little better. Let's see, our talented team. Talented team's pretty important. Let's bring out that. Okay, and I probably need to do some spell check on that. It's kind of some generic copy. And we could do the same thing here, where maybe this is white. Right, but I kind of like it simple, kind of less back and forth. Let's make that a little smaller and bring that down a little bit more so I can connect it with the rest of the type. And I'm just noodling around with spacing, making sure I add enough. I have lots of room here, so there's no excuse. Bring that over to utilize that space. Make sure people's heads are not covered and there's enough nice cropping with the photography. All right, so one more thing and we're done with this entire project. Let me grab one more photo. I wonder if I can grab this people photo, see what that looks like. So that's being brought over, and I'm going to do a different blending mode. So I'm going to break out my transparency panel. Hopefully you guys are learning through repetition, kind of a lot of this. I'm going to right click, I'm going to bring that backwards and then bring it forward. I'm doing command right bracket. I'm bringing it so I can bring it back and forth. So I have luminosity at 50%. So I have a luminosity blending mode. And I have all these different windows open. I apologize, I'm a mess when I create. That's okay. And the key here is we can use it this way. So the people are looking to the left, but they're looking off the page. And kind of a design, I guess, theory kind of idea is to have people look toward the center of a design piece. So instead of people looking away and off the page, you have people look toward the page. So when you ever want to crop a particular photo, that could help you make the choice of whether I did the left or the right side. I want people looking inward toward the other photos. It kind of helps the kind of a psychological thing there where people see someone looking somewhere, you look toward that direction. So this could be, I'm a little concerned it's a tiny bit busy, but let me see if I can't maybe not have that texture up top. So let's eliminate that altogether. I'm going to try one more photo to see if it works better, and then I think we are done.